Hello there, lovely people. It's Alex from Nintendo Life here, and I'm finally able to chat to all of you lovely people about Metroid Samus Returns. Not even a smidgen of waffling right now, except for that little bit back there. Let's dive right into things. Having to wait a frankly ludicrous 13 years for a new 2D Metroid game is bloody ridiculous, to be honest. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm as much of a fan of the Prime series as anyone else, but 2D Metroid was what I grew up on, damn it. Thank whatever celestial power's in charge of Metroid then that we've finally got a new one. And what's more, it's a remake of the first Metroid game I ever played, more importantly, one of the first video games I ever owned, Metroid II: Return of Samus. Given that nostalgia is quite a heavy force in my mind, for objectivity's sake, you'll be pleased to hear that I'm not the one who wrote this review. The power of colleagues. But getting back on track, although this is a remake in the broadest sense of the word, it's definitely not just a port with fancier graphics. There's so much new gubbins thrown in that one of the only things to survive from the original is the plot. And it's nice and simple, as you'd expect from an 8-bit monochrome game from the early 90s. The Metroids as a species have been declared an all-around rubbish idea, and should be eliminated so that the space pirates don't make them into some kind of laser or something. It's down to you, Samus Aran, to track them down and kill all 40 of them. It's not much of a species, is it? This new outing certainly adds a little more relish to the narrative, but the basic plot lines are identical, which is nice for nostalgia junkies like yours truly. In terms of what's new though, well, blimey, where do I begin? You've now got the grapple beam, the power bomb, the super missile, and the charge beam, and that's not even mentioning the new Aeon abilities. It's a weird one to pronounce. Of all of these newfangled doodads, the most useful one is also the first one you get, the scan pulse. This shows more of the map than you may have discovered, and makes breakable walls and blocks shine in a fashion that is supremely video gamey. It's a good thing you have it as well, as these so-called fake walls are everywhere, but at the same time, nowhere. I mean, they're used a lot in the game, but I had a hard time finding them.
They're not always where they were on the Game Boy.
What's arguably the biggest addition is the inclusion of a melee attack, which hasn't ever featured in a Metroid game before. The closest is probably Super Smash Bros. Melee.
Do you get the joke?
When an enemy is flashing at you in the nicest possible way and suddenly darts towards you, you can whack the X button and send that mother not only flying, but also open to a huge barrage of quick shots in a sort of slow motion bit. And you know what? It works bloody well. The idea of taking the focus away from shooting is, on paper, a terrible idea. But you'll not be doing this as often as you might think, and more importantly, it's not that easy to pull off, which you can probably tell from the footage. Either that or I'm just really, really bad at it. Also, enemies are just far more aggressive than they were, particularly compared to the original Game Boy from whence they came. No longer are they content with just milling around waiting for you to walk into them because the Game Boy's poor refresh rate blurred them so much that you couldn't see them. They're actively trying to kill you, which is rude, but probably normal for alien animal things. You can also free aim in any direction you like. That's also a pretty big deal, but it's not as radical as the melee, so it gets less screen time. As a series, Metroid has been known for its spectacular boss battles, but Metroid 2 was always the exception. Instead of just the usual Ridley, Mecha Ridley, Meta Ridley, Meta Ridley, Mecha Ridley X, Ridley Zero Sugar, instead you're supposed to go after the 40 Metroids mentioned previously. They also come in various flavors depending on how far through their development they are. Those jellyfish aren't the only way to meet a Metroid, you know. For seasoned players, these 40 mini-bosses may feel a little bit repetitive at first, but soon afterwards you'll start encountering far more troublesome forms, and the whole thing just gets a whole lot more troublesome and troublesome and troublesome. And yes, there's of course one big fight to look forward to, but we're not going to chat about that in here. So it all plays well, that's lovely stuff, but how does it all look visually? How graphically does it attack your eyeballs? Well, open your peephole, sucker, because you've been looking at it the entire time. I'd have thought this part was obvious. Compared to the random but perfectly acceptable for the time random floating platforms of the Game Boy original, every single piece of geography is subtly explained by way of the background. And that's not all that's going on back there. You'll see creatures hopping about and all manner of Chozo goodies to feast your eyes on. And understandably, it looks even better in 3D, giving a real sense of depth if you're willing to put up with the intermittent headaches. What's more, by Metroid standards, this sucker's Other games in the series have been noted for their brevity, and whilst this isn't exactly Breath of the Wild in terms of scope, it's at least double the scale you might come to expect from a 2D Metroid experience of the past, and probably even more if you've never played the original Metroid II. What's more, there's also a hard mode which you need to unlock upon completion, and also a fusion hard mode which you unlock with a specific amiibo that looks like this. Don't be fooled by the connection to Metroid 2, this game is so heavily reimagined and reworked that it might as well be a brand new entry in the series. That's why we are proud to give Metroid Samus Returns a 10 out of 10. It's probably the last really major title the 3DS will see, with the possible exception of Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, and what a way to go out. This is easily one of the best 3DS titles to date, and it truly shows that the Metroidvania genre is far from dead. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, then why don't you whack that subscribe button as it flies towards you, and be sure to check out NintendoLife.com for all sorts of lovely Nintendo-related content. Thank you again for watching, bye-bye. Ba-dum, and it's already at the right level so that I don't peek out the bugger, because that would be bad, because I'm doing a review of Metroid Samus Returns. It's a remake of the Game Boy Classic.